DeAnna Boyer is an illustrator and painter based between the United States and Ireland. I don't know if is that still true? Are you still back and forth?
I've been in the U.S. before now,
Okay.
I've lived there for 2 years.
Gotcha. She earned her master's in art and ecology at the Burren College of Art and National University of Ireland in Galway, and a BFA in illustration with an emphasis on visual development at Ringling College of Art and Design in 2022. She's a Fulbright National Geographic Storytelling Fellow for 2022 through 2023, where she studied the interactions between art, culture, and the ecology through narrative and illustrative painting at the Burren National Park in Ireland. And then Dan Silver, who goes by Silver, is a professional music producer and musician, photographer, and digital artist whose work is involved in an ever-evolving creative process and cross-pollination between artistic disciplines. I'm going to go ahead and invite DeAnna up. Give DeAnna a round of applause. Should be good to go.
So hello, I am DeAnna Boyer, and as he mentioned, I am a painter and illustrator from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I did live in Ireland for 2 years. Just last year, this was my first full year home. And when I was over there, I studied at the Burren College of Art, and I got my master's in art and ecology. And the reason I was over there was because I received a National Geographic and Fulbright storytelling fellowship, which was really cool, probably the coolest experience of my life so far. And as well as that, I was a Sean Scully Scholarship awardee, and I'm published in a few magazines. Maybe the most notable is the Field Note blogs from National Geographic, which you can go read if you want. And then I've also illustrated a few children's books in between then and now. So I kind of put this chronologically. So my undergraduate degree, I studied illustration for visual development. So I was working at Ringling College of Art and Design, and they're a school known for animation. So I worked on developing characters and backgrounds and environments for animated movies. And it was a really great time to work on iteration and idea exploration. I feel like those are the skills that I took away from my undergraduate degree the most. And it's just really exciting to see your ideas come to life from your imagination. And I feel like my undergraduate really fueled that fire in me. And for my final thesis project my senior year, we had to develop a story, whether like a children's story or like a pitch for an animated show, and then we had to create the whole world. So we had to create the characters and the environments and the story elements, so we would do storyboarding. And the story that I wrote, it was a folklore story about a goddess who tricked a young blind boy into finding the strings of her lost lute. And she promised him his vision, but whenever he found the strings, she took away all the color from the world and all the light from the world. And I think this, at the time, I didn't realize it so much, but it was really pivotal for my interest in using color. If you've seen my work upstairs, I do have pictures in this slideshow of it. It involves a lot of different color and use of color to kind of talk about how worlds can blend together through color. I use it sort of as a unifying element in my work. And then after I graduated from my undergrad, I immediately went to Ireland, which was a very cool experience. And this is my National Geographic cohort. It was really cool. We were all 5 women that got picked, and we all were going different places, studying different things. And of the 5 of us, I was the only illustrator. Everyone else was a photographer, a filmmaker, or a writer, which makes sense for National Geographic. But they were really interested in my pitch for artistic research and how it's kind of like, I don't know, it's how they used to research before photography existed. They would draw pictures of the landscape that they were seeing. And there's such an intimacy of being in the landscape and just absorbing yourself in that for several hours, drawing little bits of things that I found interesting, different ecologies, different plants, different fungus, different animals, and then also bringing that together with the stories that the people in the village were telling me about. So I lived in the Burren National Park, which is one of the most biodiverse places in all of Europe, which is super cool. And I spent a lot of my time just like taking pictures and illustrating and doing plein air paintings and sketching. and writing down people's half-drunken stories from the pub. And I'm also an illustrator, so while I was there, I was hearing these stories and I was taking these plein air paintings and kind of morphing them together and kind of personifying them through these little guys. That's what I call them, little guys. And they're kind of an embodiment of the forest spirits and the sprites that are really common in Irish culture and Irish folklore. And it was a way for me to understand different plants that were really essential to the biodiversity in Ireland through like making them a little character. And then people would see them and they're like, oh, what's the name of the character? And then I could go in and explain like, oh, it's based on this sort of tree that was really important in folklore, as well as like maintaining the biodiversity of the landscape. So yeah, I kind of swooned people into my scientific research through little guys. And then for my master's program, this was my first time having a studio space, which was super sick. Would love to have one again now. That's something I'm working towards. And I started making really big works. So I expanded from doing digital illustration into making really big, long paintings. And I also was experimenting with breaking away from like westernized storytelling that's very linear. So I wanted the pieces to also reflect that. So this piece right here, it was kind of like in a more arc shape. And then I expanded upon that idea and I made these two really big paintings. And they're kind of like portals, is how a lot of people described them, into like another realm. And these paintings were based on my experience in the landscape. It was a mixture of like my own research that I had done, as well as the folklore and the stories that people were telling me in the village. I got to interview a lot of really amazing people. I got to talk to some people who still spoke Irish, like the actual language, which is really cool because the Irish language is so finessed and each word has so much meaning behind it. And then as well as making it sort of like this weird, it's not here and now, it's maybe future, maybe past, so it's kind of blending all these worlds together. I did a lot of research on Timothy Morton, who theorized the ecological mesh, how everything's kind of like blended together and interlocking in a way that's way more complicated than we make it out to be. And I also made these zines, which were, again, trying to break away from linear storytelling. So they folded up like a book, and they looked like a book on the stand, but you could take it out, and every time you would fold it out, a different story would unfold, because it wouldn't unfold the same way every time. So each panel you were seeing was a little bit different. And this idea was definitely something I think that inspired the work that's currently upstairs for Hinterland. And Hinterland means a space beyond a realm that we know. Like, it's not something that quite exists. In Ireland, they have this folklore story about the ocean and how they thought when the sun would set over the ocean, that space where the sun was hitting the water at sunset was like a portal into the spirit realm. And if you could sail your boat out there, that you could get there. And I think I was inspired by that story in naming Hinterland the way that I did. And I became really interested in a shift of the focus on the self and how like humans are entangled in this ecological mesh specifically. Because when we think of nature, we kind of have nature and then we have human nature, and we so desperately want them to be two different things. And they're not, they're really not. So these paintings kind of take color and take normal colors away from human and put them into the humans, as well as take normal colors away from the landscape and put new ones in. Just to kind of challenge the idea of what we see as nature and what we see as self within nature. And these paintings, I was also really focused on composition, of how I could crop the human form in ways that made the viewer have to see the personalities differently. Like, not every painting you can see the face of someone, or there's multiple people, or it's just a hand, or it's just like part of the body. And I think taking away that personality and just making it vulnerable in the sense of like it's just a body in the landscape was just speaking towards reconnecting humans with nature, how we're just another body in the landscape, and how we interact with that is really important. And then these were some of my favorite pieces in the show. I Sit in the Grass is probably one of my favorites. That was based on an experience in Ireland, not that I was sitting there nude, But there was a lot of baby sheep, and in the springtime, it's such a beautiful time because all the work that they had put in throughout the winter to make the soil as fertile as they can, it really comes to life in the winter or in the springtime. And you have these baby sheep, and you have baby bunnies, and you have flocks of birds, and a lot of different biodiverse life just really springing out. And you have specific flowers that only bloom for like 2 weeks, and you really have to immerse yourself in the landscape to appreciate it. So just bringing all of those elements together and making it a little bit more vibrant and colorful and appealing to the eye in a way that I think sometimes nature isn't always seen as. I feel like with gouache and acrylic paintings or watercolor paintings, you get a very typical view of the landscape. So I think my background in illustration really translates into my contemporary painting. And I do have a list of some of my favorite artists that I'm inspired by if anyone's interested. But yeah, I think maybe the most notable ones on that list are Anthony Cudahy. I really like his work. I like how he experiments with different media. And I'm not so sure how to pronounce her name. Ines Longovelia. Her work is really beautiful as well, and she works with that cropping of the human form in her work a lot that I find really beautiful. And these works were also really heavily inspired by the pre-Raphaelite artists. I love the research that you can do on how they incorporated nature into their works and really challenged the way that painters were viewing nature and art together, as well as humans within that landscape. So yeah, I guess, are there questions now? I can take questions if anyone has any. If not, I can move on.
I have a question.
Sure.
I wonder if, like, your connection with land in Ireland, I wonder if that's carried over to maybe some of the ways that you're thinking about making art now, tied in with local landscape.
It totally has. I feel like now that I'm a teacher full time, that's what pays the bills. But now that I've had the summer off, I feel like I've really been able to take notice to certain things in the landscape. And it's hard when you come back to the place you've grown up your whole life to appreciate the landscape like you appreciate a new landscape. So I've had to be more intentional about my connection to it. But I feel like I live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, outside of that. So we have a lot of apple trees and fruit trees, and I think that's something that I've been wanting to incorporate into my work more recently, as well as honeysuckles and lightning bugs as well. They're like such a unique insect that we have in this area, and it's totally taken for granted when you leave this area. And even just like the way that farmers interact with their landscape, I researched and I interviewed a lot of farmers while I was in Ireland, and the way that they do their farming practice is very different from the way that it happens in the United States. But I think that there is some local farming that I can make connections to, and I think that is definitely something that I'm looking forward to doing now that I'm back and painting in the United States.
Are you teaching art?
I'm not. I'm actually teaching special education, which seems very different, but I teach a lot through art. I feel like the kids really enjoy a creative approach. I made them all Pokemon cards for the end of the school year. They designed them and I just made them Pokemon card packs. It's really cool. I feel like art is such a good way to connect with people on so many different levels, especially with that background in illustration. That gets me into a lot of different avenues with people.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Thanks for being here. What an awesome Saturday in Frederick. I just appreciate you having me. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. The Delaplane is a historic staple in Frederick, which with such influence on the art community here, I'm certainly proud to be a part of all this. I'm new here, and so this is very exciting. A few years ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here sharing my art in a solo exhibition. I moved from Los Angeles to the area 3 years ago. I've had an amazing welcome to this community, so I want to give Corey Fry a huge thanks, the exhibition manager here, Caressa Flannery Peterson from Stroll Magazine, who supported this immensely, and the Delaplane team for believing in my wild experiment. And to all of you, artists, friends, family, curious minds, thanks for stepping in this journey with me. Let's see if we get this to play correct. Yes. This trailer, it's a tiny glimpse into the infinite loop that fuels my work. Music inspires the visuals, visuals inspire the music. Round and round it goes. How did it all start? Ooh, there we go. This old camera, this old thing. This is something that I started with as my first thing. It began with the love for the imperfect. Cracks in sidewalks, peeling paint, distorted imagery. I've always been obsessed with beauty and decay. This camera was the tool, but over time I realized something, that art isn't just about capturing reality, it's about bending it. So fast forward to the pandemic. We're stuck indoors. My family are moving across country, and I started blending my photography with animation. Not to replace reality, but to collaborate with it. And that's when things got a little weird here. So this is the photograph you're seeing in the exhibition in the other room, which is spawning this animation and created the elements that you're watching. So I'd like to share with you guys some more about the technology here that I'm using. This is a Google Collab sheet that I'm actually coding the animation with. It's very highly involved. As you see, it's looking complex. There's lots of code. This is how I turn the camera, angle the camera, move things, pull in and out, distort the visuals, so on and so forth. I become the director this way. This is what I use to create music with, if anybody's familiar with Pro Tools. And then also Adobe Premiere to create the loop itself, the ongoing loop that you're watching projected. This is the Raspberry Pi brain that is controlling the whole thing. And this right here, down here, is the chip. That's not actually there, that's inside the box. It's only about this big. And for a computer you can build yourself and code however you want for under $100. It's an amazing piece of equipment. This is as strong as most computers today, and you see people building robots and programming automation in their homes with these things. This is finally working. Took a lot of trials to get that to happen. It also, just to make a point, this is automated, so it turns itself on each day, turns itself off, starts the loop with a little bit of help of turning on projectors with humans. But this is where I admit I'm definitely not a coder. I didn't grow up that way, but I'm stubborn, and I wanted to see if I could teach the machine to dream with me. So I fed it photos, music, and months of glorious failures. Here's one. We started speaking the same language after a while. I personally loved this, even though it's totally distorted and strange. It feels like art to me. This is a later trial of the same idea. So I put out endless amounts of this till I get exactly what I think I'm supposed to be getting. You see the dimension forming, the colors getting better. And then this is trial 6. And here I'm starting to get really happy with the field of depth and the coloring and the movement and the various things happening. It's quite interesting. Music informs the art, and art informs the music.
The human brain emits an electrical current, the real thing. Very real thing.
another recent one. These I feel are more AI art, it's a dialogue, it's a collaboration. Just like jazz improvisation, I set the rules and let the text surprise me. Sometimes it's awful, it's all one of those, and sometimes it's magic, and that's the fun of all of this. Art's not about itself, but the attention we bring to it. I think Marcel Duchamp was correct. The art isn't the final image. It's the hours tweaking, the happy accidents, hanging out in Ireland, drawing trees, the what-if moments. Art also creates conversation, consumes us, and brings it into our lives. I'll play you a few more of these animations. These are directly related to what's in the gallery, and these are where I felt I was starting to finally have real success with the ideas, the music, the things talking together, like I said, becoming alive. And telling a story that I believe in, something that represents me. And this one, Icelandic Dreams, really is my favorite. This hones in on all things that I love. I've actually never been to Iceland, or Iceland, but this is what I see in dreams. This is what I So here's this twist. Digital art demands to be physical. These prints, each one took 10 test runs to get the colors right. The projections, maybe 20 test runs or more. I've tried everything, single projector, multiple projectors, hanging sheets, fog machines, till it felt truly alive. So why go through this hassle? Because art should confront you. It should take up space, just like time takes up our lives. There's so much intention and fulfillment in letting the art immerse you, whether you create it or appreciate it. So those last two were stills from the animation. This is actually a photograph in Havana. Also a photograph. Also. Some of my greatest influences: Kubrick, Kraftwerk, Méliès, Ennio Morricone. I'm standing on giant shoulders. Kubrick taught me about scale, Kraftwerk taught me machines can groove, and Ennio Morricone, sound is a landscape. That's the loop. Sound becomes image, becomes sound. journey is everything in between, maybe before and after. And equally, a journey is formed when witnessed by the eyes of another viewer. This is why I love collaborating with Tick. It's like jamming with a bandmate who never sleeps. Seriously, arts is not about perfection. It's about showing up, embracing the weird. And when in doubt, add more fog machines. Thanks, everybody. I'll take questions. Anybody have questions?
Do you ever get the urge to collaborate with another artist?
Yes. I spent many years making music alone, and my only favorite way now is collaborating with other people, and I feel the same about the art. So far, this has been mostly myself, but it would be great to collaborate with others for sure. Whether it be morph what they're doing, or vice versa, and so on.
What about dance? I saw you dance.
Yes, it would be very cool to put this behind performance. Think of the Sphere in Vegas. That could be incredible.
Question, is the tech actually responding to the music? Like, is the music part of the prompts?
No.
Okay.
Not in these. It's definitely that's now come into the technology, so you can do it now.
Yeah.
The music is just coming out of me.
Yeah.
It's just, and then vice versa, the visuals have more to do with the programming I'm doing.
Oh, I
and then
guess
I sync them together.
I guess what I was asking was, like, you're creating music, are you then inputting that music somehow that you've created into the tech that it's responding?
No, these are totally
Okay,
separate elements,
okay.
yeah. But you can now, that's all I was saying.
Okay,
You actually
cool.
can do that, yeah.
I wonder if you could do that with video, like with dance too, if there's a way that the rhythms of dance, like you were saying, could somehow respond to that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's come a long way.
Yeah, it's wild.
It reminds me of this other work that I saw. It was kind of experimental, and they hadn't published it, but they had set up like a live video camera, and they had somehow programmed that video camera to make, I wouldn't call it music, but sound art from
That's
like
cool.
a live video. And I feel like I can see elements of that here. That's really
That's super cool. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks for taking the journey.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Give
it.
it up for Dave.